We know quite a bit now on many of JFK Jr.'s controversial takes on things like vaccines, autism, and nutrition. They're based on questionable, even downright debunked science. But now his attraction to the scientific fringe seems to be encroaching on abortion care. He's leaning on what The Atlantic is calling a particularly questionable study that could change the FDA's assessment of the abortion pill mifepristone, which has been used safely and reliably for decades. Joining us now, UC Davis law professor Mary Ziegler, who has written several books on the history of abortion in America, and former Obama White House health policy director and NBC News medical contributor, Dr. Kavita Patel. All right, so Mary, this study on mifepristone, what is it based on? What did it show?
So it was based on emergency codes that insurers offer, and they claim to show that the actual rate of serious complications related to mifepristone was in fact, 20 times or more than 20 times higher than had been reported by the FDA. So the argument here, I think, is not just that mifepristone is dangerous, but to give President Trump sort of an out politically to say, I did sort of promise not to touch abortion restrictions nationally, but I didn't know that this data was available. It's by a group called the Ethics and Public Policy Center, which is not typically involved in medical research of any kind. It was conducted by the organization's president and head of data analysis, so these are not people who usually do this kind of work. And it obviously, I think, was pursued in part because there was a feeling not only that the Trump administration was dragging its feet on abortion, but also that there would need to be some kind of new data to justify an about-face by the president on what had been his previously taken public position.
So do you believe that this was always something that they were going to try to do, and now they're looking for a justification for it, Mary?
I do. I think that there has always been, there's been an attack on mifepristone really since mifepristone was first approved by the FDA in 2000. And I think the previous hope had been that existing questions raised by anti-abortion groups would be enough for the Trump administration. But that didn't appear to be the case. And President Trump was very vocal about saying this issue should be left to the states. There were going to be no transformational changes at the national level, really on the campaign trail and to some degree afterwards. So I think there was beginning to become a sense that more needed to be done to give him some kind of political leverage or room to maneuver. And I think that's part of what we're seeing with this study.
And Dr. Patel, just the study claims more than 10% of people who use mifepristone experience serious adverse events. That's a big number, 10%. The reality, though, past studies, and by the way, this drug is in wide availability and wide use, show that a less than 0.3% rate of significant adverse events from medical abortions involving mifepristone. So 10% according to this study, but all of the other studies done up until now, 0.3%. Help me understand the discrepancy there. How does this one study show such a high number of adverse events?
Yeah, Katie, I think Mary pointed to it. Well, first of all, that when you actually go to the Ethics and Public Policy Center website and try to look for the methodology and including the databases from which they extracted it from, you don't have the kind of transparency that we're used to seeing in peer-reviewed journals, for example, where those studies that cited the 0.3% that you mentioned, Katie, actually do have the transparency in the data sources methodology. So that's one huge gaping difference that kind of I saw as a health services researcher looking at these reports. And I should say, calling it a study is a misnomer, because a study is done with a hypothesis, kind of methodological rigor, and again, transparency, as I mentioned, and the kind of analysis that we're discussing that conveniently popped up, about a month ago in time for potentially some sort of change at the FDA is far from any of the decades of research, including, by the way, this has been a drug that has been under pretty strict prescribing guidance, what's considered some of the kind of highest standards for database requirements. When I would write a prescription, there was a detailed kind of accuracy and account that I had to submit in order to give with that prescription in order to kind of create this decades of research that this is safe and effective. And so I do think that the discrepancy, Katie, just reduces to, I would like to say, political convenience, but also it goes against what even the Supreme Court has heard in terms of arguments around mifepristone and the scientific basis for which some of the most recent Supreme Court kind of posturing to try to take down the mifepristone prescribing access has been. This, combined with the Medicaid cuts that we're seeing in the budget bill that's going forward, is troubling, not just for reproductive access, but for women's health to access overall.
There's women's health. There's also overall health that is now potentially at risk. We talk a lot about how RFK Jr. wants to make the country healthier again, but a lot of the moves that are being made behind the scenes aren't enforcing that, aren't achieving that. There was proposed regulation that would have prevented illness by reducing the presence of salmonella. And that is top of mind because whenever there is a recall of lettuce or of some food product, it's pretty widely publicized. Hey, don't eat this thing, or be careful of this thing, or if you have this thing, send it back. There was a 9-year-old boy in Indiana who was hospitalized last November from an E. coli outbreak that the FDA did not publicize. Now, this is back in November. It's during the Biden administration still. So why is it something that we need to be concerned about now? So this happened back in November. Why didn't this information get publicized, Dr. Patel?
Right. I think that's exactly what the recent Washington Post reporting, as well as a number of other people, even on social media, have been calling for the Center for Science and Public Integrity. There are a number of organizations, nonprofit organizations, that have been trying to understand. And as you mentioned, Katie, just to be clear, that the incident and the events and the E. coli, and unfortunately what has happened to not just this one child, but likely to many other individuals who don't even realize it was E. coli that was the source of potentially the food poisoning. Unfortunately, this is not something that has gone away, and this administration has to deal with it. Number one, there has been back and forth reporting around this current administration's reduction in food inspection workforce. That's something that just as of today, the FDA commissioner tweeted that is not the case, but we still don't have an accurate count of which FDA workforce on food inspections have or have not been decreased. Number two, I think, Katie, anytime there's something, even if it's in the past, it's an opportunity to educate and understand what we need to do to fortify the future. We have not necessarily seen that same level of intensity as we have seen just around the topic we're discussing now, mifepristone, or another topic, talc powder, which is also all of these are very important safety topics. But the evidence around E. coli far outweighs any of the evidence around adverse events for mifepristone, for example. So I think you're watching not just the Food and Drug Administration, but I think that you're seeing other parts of HHS being used to kind of promote something that doesn't necessarily make America healthier again. It's making us sicker.
Maybe political priorities over actual health priorities, maybe. Dr. Kavita Patel, thank you so much. Mary Ziegler, thank you as well.